everybody, and we're delighted to have Mark Cousin here with us today. Mark, will kick off straight away with our first question to you, which is, what is your relationship with flying?
Oh, my relationship with flying, I always wanted to be an aerospace engineer from as long as I can remember, to be honest. I don't really know what drove me to want to be in the aerospace industry, but it was always my dream and my intention. But my more recent relationship with flying is that during COVID, I've been learning to fly a helicopter. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and a helicopter is a really difficult machine to fly, but very, very satisfying when you finally manage to get a helicopter to hover. Yeah, it's great. So I'm planning to carry on doing that. And my journey to be taking over as CEO of A-cube was, an opportunity, something that just came up as an opportunity. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we faced at A-cube was continuing to be seen as relevant in a large organization like Airbus. We had to adapt a lot from an organization that was created initially as a disruptive innovation center, which was more collaborative and more and remaining relevant, but still taking on projects that were too risky for the mainstream organization to attempt. So it was a sometimes a difficult balancing act, and so for some of our projects it worked, and for others it didn't. And of course, probably the biggest challenge that I faced while I was there was that COVID came. We went through a very difficult time. We had to close projects. We had to let people go, but that was was the price we had to pay to survive. And it was certainly a very tough personal challenge.
Which project are you the most proud of during your tenure at A-cube?
I think that, the project I'm most proud of is we were developing a project called WayFinder. What we were trying to do with that project was really leverage hundreds of billions of dollars that the automotive industry have put into autonomy, of which computer vision is one of the key technologies. For the benefit of aviation, and I think we did that pretty successfully. I think we still have A-cube still has a leading position in. During my time there, we successfully landed an A350 completely autonomously using WayFinder's computer vision.
Do you think that's the way to the single pilot or no pilot, like the eVTOL, like the air taxi? Do you think that's going to come soon?
It's one of the critical bricks to single pilot operation, and obviously that's something we were looking at. Yes, I think it will come, and I think it will come for several reasons. In the sort of eVTOL space, eventually single or no pilot operation will have to come for economic reasons. It won't make sense to fly 4 passenger vehicles with a fully qualified pilot on board. So if those vehicles are going to take off, they ultimately as a business, then they'll have to be autonomous in some form or other. And single pilot operation in the large commercial aviation industry, I think, will come for two fundamental reasons. One is safety. We've seen that these type of improvements in technology, going from each generation of aircraft, we've always improved safety from one generation of aircraft to another, which I think we will also do with the transition to single pilot operation. but also just from the point of view of the number of pilots that the industry needs. The last numbers I saw were we'll need to train over 600,000 new pilots over the next, I think, 15 to 20 years, which is more than double the number of commercial pilots that we've trained since the beginning of the jet age. It's not going to be taking the pilot out of the cockpit. It's going to be changing the role of the pilot in the cockpit so that they're doing much more value-added activity rather than looking out the window trying to spot the runway, for example. A 20 megapixel camera with a complex AI algorithm behind it can do that far better than the human eye. So why not use it to do that?
And do you think that autonomous vehicles and eVTOL, which is the air taxi, are going also to democratize the fact that there is no pilot on board and nobody's driving, just the AI is driving? Do you think it's going to take 5 years, 10 years for a massive acceptance on the passenger side?
I think it's going to take time for acceptance, for sure. I think we have a big advantage over the automotive industry in that the environment in the air is much more predictable. There aren't so many different types of obstacles and unpredictable events that occur. I think so, but I think the initial adoption of the technology we will still have. I don't know whether you'll call them pilots or operators or whatever on board, because I think with the level of autonomy of these vehicles, the level of training you'll need to fly an eVTOL won't be the same as the level of training you would need to fly a large commercial aircraft. But yes, ultimately, they're in order to make business sense, they'll I think need to become autonomous. But I think that will take time.
I remember when A-cube was founded, and it was all about 10xing and going so much faster. What do you think the Valley has taught the aerospace industry, or if not taught, then what lessons do you think the aerospace industry should take from how the Valley works?
What you do see is that companies in the Valley are certainly much more risk tolerant, and I think that's more to do with the fact that these projects are very often being funded by venture capital funding, where the appetite for risk is higher than it is within a traditional publicly quoted company. I think the most important characteristic that you see is the one that you mentioned, Anya, is the speed and agility. So you see that the culture there is able to move much more quickly. The whole process of decision making and prototyping and doing things quickly is much more deeply established there. And I think also the ability to pivot and change direction and maybe be much less wedded to a roadmap that was set out at the beginning of the project. If there's a different mentality in the people who end up in the Valley, you do have a much more agile mentality and workforce there.
In terms of soft skills, what kind of soft skills do you think that people will need to get in the 5-10 years to come?
And we always say people are our biggest asset. So if that really is the case, then we need to look after our people. We need to be sensitive to our people's wishes. Where I am now, in terms of recruiting, which we're doing a lot of at the moment, this is one of the questions that I get. Will I have flexibility to work from home some of the time? Because that's now something which the best people in the best talent in the industry is going to want and require. So if we want to attract the best people, then we're going to have to be flexible in how we integrate them into our workforce, and that's something we have to embrace if we want to attract the best people. The business model of Universal Hydrogen is really to solve the infrastructure esse of the availability of hydrogen. I think we all know that for smaller regional aircraft, it's possible to design aircraft that are powered by hydrogen. One of the biggest blockers is simply that hydrogen is not available at every airport in the world, and it almost certainly won't be for a very long time. The infrastructure required to either produce or distribute hydrogen via a network like we have for for traditional aviation fuel, which is mostly pipes in the ground. The investment required to put that in worldwide for hydrogen in the short term is not going to be there. So we're looking at designing a capsule system where high pressure gaseous hydrogen is stored in a capsule, which can be transported by the normal intermodal freight network to any airport in the world, and then just loaded onto an aircraft like cargo between one flight and the other. So that's our fundamental business model. But as our CEO and my former boss at Airbus has said, we're a bit like Nespresso when they invented the coffee capsule. They also had to get into the business of producing coffee machines to demonstrate to people, what the advantage of the coffee capsules was, which is also what we're having to do. So we're having to also develop hydrogen powertrains to demonstrate that you can convert existing regional aircraft to operate on hydrogen. But the long-term goal is to trigger an industry-wide change in the regional aircraft business to producing aircraft that are designed to run on hydrogen.
Let's talk about startups. As Alumnair, we try to help, of course, some people to create their own startups or invest in some startups. Which startup really impressed you in the last, let's say, in the last 2 years or the last 3 years and during your tenure at A-cube? And which one would you think you should invest for the future?
Well, I guess the answer is in where I am now.
Sure.
I would certainly focus on investing in businesses which are addressing the decarbonization of the aviation industry, whether that be through hydrogen, which is where I'm working, or synthetic aviation fuels and biofuels and even electric aviation. All of these technologies are contributing to the overall picture of decarbonizing aviation, which I think is something we as an industry have to do if we want to sort of retain our social license to operate, if you like.
Commanders, during the interview we had with Alumnair, told us that he was impressed, but how many, in few years, I will say it, Elon Musk was able to really disrupt completely the aerospace industry. Do you see any newcomers that can destroy the industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think there will be some. I think hopefully we'll be one of them. I think there are other, there are good examples of other startups that I think pose a big risk to OEMs because of the change or the adoption of new technology. You see companies like X-Wing, Reliable Robotics, Merlin Labs, and so on. If someone comes to I don't know, one of the big freight operators like FedEx, UPS, or Amazon with a proposal to automate their fleet of A320s, then Amazon won't care who's doing that. If it's not being proposed by Airbus or Boeing for their fleet of cargo aircraft, then the business will go to the people who are able to do it quickly and safely.
Yeah, if you look at the industry and the last order, United bought 100 aircraft from Earth Aerospace, a new startup. DHL just bought dozens of electrical airplanes. It seems that the electrical airplanes now as kind of a booster, I will say, in the industry versus the hydrogen, or do you think that the hydrogen will take much more time to be mature to compete against the battery, I will say, solution?
I mean, we've already signed a whole series of LOIs with companies, Raven, Alaska, Air Nostrum, in the last few weeks for hydrogen-powered aeroplanes. I think we're addressing different parts of the market. Battery-powered aircraft are addressing the very small end of the market. I don't think you will see a 50-seat battery-powered airplane. And some of the airlines, a lot of them, they're placing bets on this new technology. They're not placing irreversible contracts for these airplanes yet, but they are placing bets on what they see as the emerging technologies which will fit their markets. At the moment, there is a lot of capital, a lot of venture capital looking to invest in aerospace at the moment, either directly or through these special acquisition companies, which are currently a big thing in the venture capital business. But yeah, there's a lot of capital out there. There's more capital than there are good ideas and good projects in which to invest in.
So thank you very much for your time today, Mark. I think it was a great insight to have the Silicon Valley view on the aerospace.
Take care. Thanks a lot, Mark.